Hello guys, hope everyone's having a nice Thursday. So today's video, I just want to do a little bit of refactoring. So let's see what refactoring is. So refactoring is a discipline technique for restructuring existing body code, altering its internal structure without changing external behavior. Basically, it means you're changing a code. You're basically condensing it. So if you're repeating things multiple times, you want to kind of just like create a function or somehow don't repeat it like 50 times. So an example of that would be uh, right here. Since we're creating three elements here, well, since three of them are essentially doing the same thing as creating elements three times, we can kind of make a function and then just call it three times, or basically it returns. Well, we can return like an array of nodes based on how many arguments we pass in. So let's say we passed an array with h3, a p, and a p, and then the function it will just return this. It will return the node, and then we can just capture the value with and store it in a different array and then return it. So that's one thing we can do. We could do the same thing with this. I believe. Oh no, I think we could keep this the same. This is fine. Append child. Since we're appending it three times, we could package this in an array and then just put it in one function and just call it here. So this would, since it's doing like three essentially the same thing every time, we can just package it in function and just call it once. So let's see, where else are we? We might be doing things twice. Uh, so well, from the challenge, we saw that we can kind of just create three to four functions and three to four lines of code, and they'll do basically exactly the same thing as like the app, as what it's supposed to do. So this is my Ghibli review app. I did in class. I haven't touched it since Sunday. So quick refresh. I didn't really follow their styling. I just looked at it and went about it my own way. So let's just see what it looks like. So if you make a call, it just have a little styling on title, the year. It's a little hover effect. Pretty simple, just a hover effect. And I think that's the only effect I have. Um, and yeah, so the way the data is being stored, I have a global object here called reviews data. So when I make the call, when I make the get all movies title, so the DOM content loads, and then we do the first thing that happens is a sync await. So we wait for the data to be finished, data to be created. I believe is that what I did? Movie data. Okay, so I put it in a variable. Okay, I saved everything in a variable. So that's kind of unnecessary since we saw from the challenge you could just put everything in the value of an option tag. So uh, so yeah, this is not necessary because at the time that's just what I thought of, and I went with it. So we get all the movies, and then just puts in the variable. Once that's done, we make the make movies options. So and after that, we make the options list, the list of options. So it just basically creates an option tag, puts in the value and inner text as the same thing. So for the value, one thing I could do is instead of just a element.title, which is looping through the array of movies, we could just instead of the title, we could put in uh, the ternary function, and we could pass in the movie year, movie title. Oh, excuse me, I had to sneeze. We could put in the title, year, and description right here in the values, in the value property of the option. That's one thing we could do to simplify things. So we already know that we can kind of do this in 3, 4 lines of code. So let's just kind of leave it as it is and just see areas where we can refactor it. See where we're making like doing the same thing multiple times, and then turn that into a function, perhaps. Um, okay. So the only cool thing I added was let's say you add reviews and the movie is my neighbor. So let's say you change it. So the reviews actually stick with the movie itself. So let's say you go back to this, and then the reviews are independent to the movie. And then this is always an image. but I'm not sure why it's not popping up. I have a list style here, which is an image to this. So let's see if that link still works. Page moving out. Okay, yeah. So the image doesn't work. So let's just go to Google real quick. Cat image, and then get the first one. Let's get this. Let's just get the image. Copy image address, link address, image address. I believe that's a short one. Yeah. Okay, let's just change the URL back to a working link. And then we can see what that looks like. So the problem is the image size. I'm not sure how to control the image size. You'd have to edit the image and then do it. But yeah, you can, for your list styles, you can put like a font icon in. That'll work as well. So just leave that out for now. But yeah, one issue is I think this will still work. Oh no, it doesn't work. I thought you could still add movies. Okay. Alright, so let's just go to the JavaScript. That's the only thing we're really caring about here. So the movie data holds all the data that we fetched. The options, it's an array that holds all the option tags. So let's see. What's it called? Options. So where's my options? I never called it. Okay. So I made it, but I never called it anywhere. The way to check for multiple matches is, well, sometimes it highlights it, but if you want to check, just press Control D, Command D, I think, Command D, and then you can highlight multiple things at once, and you could actually change it in itself quicker. So yeah. So apparently I did not use options. I forgot what I was trying to do. I think I was trying to put the options tag in an array, but then I didn't. I just appended it to the select tag. So that's one thing we do. If we're not using it, remove it. So I'm pretty sure I use reviews data. This is the reviews data holds the reviews for each film title. So it's just an object where the key is the name of the movie, and the data it's an array of everything. It's an array of all the list items. So I'm pushing in every list item. So every time you click submit, this gets appended here to the list, as well to the UL, as well as getting appended to my object, to the reviews data, which holds all the reviews for that specific movie. Okay, so let's see. So let's try doing this. Let's try to simplify this create element thing. Let's see if we can put in an array and pass these three things. Actually, these three things: the H3, the P, and the P. And then let's see if we can return an array of those data. And then here we can. Well, we can do that. Well, actually, we can do all three of these in like doing essentially the same thing: the creating, an inner text, and a punch out. So let's try to just create a function. Constant. Let's do create, edit, and append. Make and add. Make and add. Usually you want your functions to do one thing, but in this case since we're just like, it's just you're making a note and appending it, we could just, what would you call it? Append pen node. What would I call it? The problem is that since these three are different, you could pass in one argument, two argument, and then two arguments. So this could be one array. This could be another array with title, release, and description. So this is with that, this is with that, and this is with that. So since they're in order, we can do a for loop and just grab the index since they're the same indexes. So let's do it real quick. Constant. I always have trouble making like good names. Append new node. How about that? Append new node to append new node to this. Append new node to display. Let's just do append new node to, and then we'll put our destination as well. So this will have first thing it has first thing it takes is in tags. So it'll be array of tags. But I didn't write the functions right. Oh man, sorry. Excuse me, guys. Tags. The second thing it will take is in what do you call those? What the hell do you call these? Properties. PROPERTA properties. And lastly, we'll just do destination or target. Yeah, we'll do target. Target meaning where we're appending it to. So properties are these three things. And then target would just be movie detail in this case. So this is an array, this is an array, and this is this will just be this. I think the reference still holds to that node, so let's just try it. What are we doing? We're doing a for loop. Let I is equal to 0, while I is less than tags dot length length, and then we'll just do I plus length. We'll do increment, and then we will first we gotta create this element. So let's copy this, and let's just do tag, and then here we'll put in the tags that I do it. I do what else? We'll just do a brackets. Well, we have to do brackets. We can't do that, so we have to do brackets. Let's see. Tags bracket properly. It's this. So we got the right side, but we're changing it to the left side. So this is a little bit out of sync. Tags that inner text is equal to properties to the I. So actually no, we don't need this then in this case. So we're calling the inner text, which is already a built-in property of all the nodes. And then we're going to change the value, the inner text of it, to the properties at that index. So at that index will be title, release date, description. Since they're in order, since they flow in the same order, this is fine. This will work. I believe so. So and then we need to append it. So we could either return third argument. So third argument we're passing in movie detail div. So hopefully if this works, it should append it. So let's do append child, and then we'll append the tag. So hopefully if all goes well, this should work. But let's try it out. You never know until you try it. So these we can comment out. Before we comment, we'll just leave it as is. First one would be H3. Second one would be P. And the third one would be a paragraph tag. So the first argument, the tags done. Next up is properties. This will also be an array, and the first property is title. Title. Second property is release, release date. I think I spelled that right. Release date, and then last one with the description, descript. Description. Okay, that's our second one. if everything works in this case, it should do the same thing as these 9 lines of code. So this one function takes care of the duplicates for us. And let's try it out. Okay, it didn't work yet. The problem was that we are not referring to something here. We're not referring to movie object. So the problem is the movie object, and the movie object, where's the movie object? Where is the movie object is the argument we're passing in. Okay, so and we don't want to put 4 arguments. Usually you don't want to put more than 3 arguments, but to stretch it, we'll just stretch it to movie argument. What is this movie object? We'll just put a movie object. So I'll just put a movie object and I forgot this part. We're grabbing the properties but of the wrong thing. Of nothing pretty much. Movie object. So let's try that. It doesn't work. It's probably an error here. Can I read property inner text of no? So we cannot. Oh no, we never actually passed in the object. So this is a very long function. Usually you don't want to write a long function like this, but let's just try it out. So okay, cool, no errors. So this works. It still works. Everything works, I think. Let's just put a review. This is in from up. So let's go back to from up. Okay, yeah, everything still works. So we condensed the 9 lines of code into a function. We turned it into a function, and then we passed in all the arguments we needed. So you could have actually just created 1-line functions or 1-liners here for each little thing. You can just create 1-liners and then pass in the arguments like that. Because if you think about it, this is just one argument. The only necessary arguments are this and this. And yeah, because that's the only thing that changes, right? 1, 2, yeah. Those 2 things are the only thing that changes. And movie data movie object stays the same. So you could have, for the second function, you could have passed in the properties as well as the movie data. And for the first function, creating elements, we could just pass in one array of this. And for the movie detail div, we could have just kind of not created it. But we could pass in as the third. In the third function, we could just pass in the movie detail div, or we can just loop through. We can actually return an array of all the nodes and then set the things, and then we'll append it. So we could have looped through it. Let's see that actually. So instead of one, let's try another way. So instead of append node, creating one big function as all 3, let's try to create 3 functions which are like just 1-liners, and they just return one thing. So let's just do 1 is equal to section 1 argument. The first argument is just an array of tags, so let's do tags. And this basically just let's create a 1-liner so we won't do brackets. Const tag. This are we doing? So instead of having, so we're passing an array here. So we can remember, if you guys remember .map, we can use .map to return an array. So essentially, what we're doing here is we need to return an array so we can loop through it again for these 3 for this portion. So let's just do a .map. Since tags is already a array, we could just do .map, and then now we are guaranteed that we're going to return an array without explicitly making a variable and then pushing into it. So element.create element tags. One thing we got to change, or one thing this will make it actually cleaner. We're just passing an element, create element, and then this is if you guys remember, this is automatically returns and puts it into array. So it just creates an element and pushes the element to the array. So let's just do console.log. We could just do it here actually. Let's copy this. We need that, and then we'll do a one, and then console.log, and then we'll see it. What do we need to do? Select it. Oh yeah, we have to select the movie. So yeah, as you can see, we have an array of 3 items. So it automatically returns it, and that's exactly what we want. So that's good. So that's one cool thing about nodes. You could just return it. You could always just put in an array and just return it, which makes it pretty easier. Which makes it easier to work with or funner to work with. Since the second one is almost the same thing, we're just it's almost the same thing. We could just kind of copy and paste this, and let's do that. So let's change the variable name to. This doesn't take tags, it takes in properties, PRO. Let's just do props. And then tags, we're going to loop through each of the properties. So let's do props. And we are going to return an array of nodes. So then our last function, we're just appending all those nodes to this one little thing. So what do we need? So we do need this movie object. So technically, so we do need this second argument, movie objects. Props movie or props map. So now we're in a loop. We have each of the individual properties, and we are not creating it. What are we doing? Me and myself a little bit confused. So this will be, you'll store this, and you store all the tags here, and then what you do after that is you loop through all the tags. Since there's 3 arrays, you loop through it. You can just do what you have to do you'll have to do a map constant, and then we'll do node, or not node. You could do tags, and then completed tags. Let's say that's PLE completed, or tags with text. Tags with text. We'll do a map on it, and then we'll grab it. We'll do those simple. We'll set it up. Okay, so we're gonna return an array with all the tags, but there's nothing in it. So what we needed, or what we want to do here, is we're gonna change the inner text of all 3, and then return it again, and then finally we're gonna append it. So actually, let's just create the third one too. Append new nodes. Let's just do append nodes. Okay. And this one is we're not returning an array, so we just have to loop through it the amount of times, or however elements there are. So we're just gonna do a for each. What am I doing here? Why am I tags? Okay, that's fine. Tags.map. Append node. So we have the tags with text. Tags with text. This is going to be an array. So we'll do for each. For each element. So for each of the nodes that we have, like text and stuff, we're just going to append it to movie detail div. And since we already have this reference in our scope, we can just do that. We can just address it right here, and then we're going to append child, and then we're going to append all the elements. So 3 small functions, each do one thing. So I believe this. I think this is a better way to do it than rather making one function which does 3 things all at once. Yeah. So let's add the last function. Actually, our 2 is not done. What are we missing here? Do we need this? So what we have to do is, for each of the elements, we have to put in the text we could call a function and then pass this into it. I think that's what I wanted to do. Or we can create the function right here. Yeah, let's not create the function. Let's just pass in the function here. Tags. Okay, this looks cleaner. So we have our second thing. It takes in 2 arguments because we have the things that change are, well, the things we need are title, release date, description, and then the target object, the movie object, which we're passing in. So let's just do that. Movie objects. So now we can finally go here, and then we're not creating elements for each element. For each of those things, we're gonna just do a movie object, and then we're going to do the same thing with the here. Tag. What is tag? Oh, we have to put it on all these elements, so we do need elements here. No, wait, what? There is no I here. Elements. I don't know, I'm getting confused here. We're adding it to something, to all of this, all the props, which are this. So we're not doing this. We have to hard code it. We have to. So the problem with this is, since we have 2 arrays, and we have to kind of loop through. We have to loop through this. This is the thing we have to loop through. So right now, I'm looping through properties, which is this. So I passed in tags. We need the tags because you have to put it. You have to put it in the tags, and then we need the movie object, which we did not pass in. Well, we did pass it in, but we need this as well. So this one takes 3 things again. So actually, this might look cleaner if you just do it here instead of creating another function for it. Because then we could just loop through. We could loop through tags here, and then we can pass in these 3 stuff. Damn it. Tags is good. Props is good. We'll just create a property variable. Do you want to create it? Oh man. Whoops. No, we'll just pass it in, hard code it, and then movie object. That's fine. Since this isn't changed, this is fine. So the first thing is properties, which is good. The second thing is the tags. Just clean this up. So we're looping through each of the properties, but we still have to loop through the tags. So we kind of need the index. And then we return have to return the array. So let's see if map, you can get an index number with map. So let's do JavaScript map. Because I believe with for each you can get the index number as well. It's like one of the 3rd or 4th arguments, or 2nd argument actually. So as we can see,
it's 5 o'clock.
Okay, it's 5 o'clock. As we can see, we can actually get the index number, meaning it's optional. So let's check here. It takes a callback function with the current value, and usually we just put in like element or whatever the current thing is. But the second argument you could pass in is the index number. Okay, so let's utilize that, and let's take advantage of that. Well, let's use that so we can create this one-line function. So now we're looping through the elements, and we have the index number that we're at, and it always starts with 0, I believe. So that's good. That's exactly what we need. So properties. Okay, we're looping through properties. Each of our properties are called elements, and then we need to add it to the tags. So that's the one little issue we had. We had to put in this tags. So this should. I'm not sure if this is in return tags tags that are that inner text. Inner text. Yeah. So for each of the tags, it's gonna loop through it. So the 0, 1, which it'll be in sync with the properties. Okay, let's just see if this one works. And then append nodes. Let's just create that last function. Append nodes. This one is simple. We're just appending it. Append nodes is equal to. It takes in, what does it take? It takes in. It's going to take in array of. Let's just say nodes. And then we add function node brackets. All we're doing is. Oh well, it actually takes two things. It takes in nodes as well as target. The target element we are adding it to. So let's do target. Well, no, sorry. We have to loop through the nodes first. Loops for each element. We are going to target. We are going to append it to the target. Append child to element. That's a little bit different while coding and talking. I think it's not slower, but it just feels a little different talking and coding. So I encourage if you guys haven't tried it, try it out. It's kind of fun. Let's just clean it up, and then we calling it here. Are we calling it? Oh, actually, I made the whole thing here, so let's not do that. Let's just call it append nodes. And then you have to pass in nodes, which is tags with text. Hopefully, if that function works, it's going to return us array of tags with the inner text from the movie object. And then the second argument will be the target. The target is the movie data, movie detail div. Okay, good. Refactoring, go away. Okay, no errors so far. Okay, now we get errors. Append nodes before initialization. Cannot access append nodes before initialization. Line 78. Before initialization? What? Number 17. Before initialization. So this function is not working. Space selected movies. Is it because our function at the bottom? Let's see. Okay, not that it. Cannot access append nodes. Well, it is being initialized. What do you mean? Before initialization. It must be something with the order of this. Before initialization of what? Add display selected movie. Before initialization. Is there something to sync away? Let's see. I'm not sure what the problem is here. Before initialization. So we're passing in tags. We're passing in the movie object. And we're passing tags with text. Movie detail div, which is just this. Node before initialization. So what that means is that our nodes have not been created. I think that's what it means. So why? Is this something with the function? Is it not returning this? I think this is not returning it. Actually, I'm not sure what this is returning at the moment. Let's console log this. What is that? 82? Nothing. So it's just putting in the text. Actually, not. It's not returning a node. So that's the problem here. Let's see. It's not returning a node. We want to return a node. I think we should switch the tags and the properties. I believe since we're looping through the properties, we're not returning the tags. We're returning the properties itself, I think. Yeah, let's just try tags. Instead of looping through the properties, we're gonna loop through the tags now, and hopefully that's gonna return the tag itself. So tags.map. So now this becomes element. This whole thing becomes element. Element.innerText is equal to movie text. I'm not sure if this returns it. That's the thing. Okay, movie object, and then we'll get to ith index. So hopefully, nope. Still, Windows for initialization. Now it's undefined. Okay, we did not use properties. What is properties? Properties. So we need properties, or props in this case. Do we have it? No, we're still getting just getting the titles. We're not returning the node itself, so that's the problem here. Actually, are we even getting the nodes? We've never console log this. So yeah, I made the mistake of not console logging each of my functions. Let's see. So actually, we are not. We are not. Oh no, we are getting it. Yeah, these are nodes. Okay, let's look at it one more time. Properties. So tags we're pushing in. Oops. So the second thing we're passing in is the tags, which is an array of each of the nodes. So these are created. This is good. So this function is good. Something with this second function is not right. So tags. So we're gonna loop through each of these tags. So now we have access to it. We can call it using the element. Now we're gonna change the property of the property of each of the nodes, the tags of inner text, to equal to movie object property. Is that? So this works, but it's passing in. It's passing the data, but it's not passing. It's not returning the node. Huh? And it's a map. So the problem is we're not returning the node. We're just returning. We're kind of replacing this whole thing with just this. So in a sense, it's kind of like this right now. So let's see, if we do that, it's going to return like the same thing pretty much. Yeah, it's returning the same thing. So I don't know why that's happening. Dot inner text, but inner text is a property of this. We can confirm by just checking through it. Inner text, unless I spelled it wrong, but if I spelled it wrong, it should be an error. So we are getting the nodes. We are going to the inner text, and we're replacing it, just the inner text with that. But we're actually just returning this. We're not returning the node itself. So that seems to be an issue here. You could fix it with 2 lines, but I'm trying to think of if it's possible 1 line. What if I bracket it? Meaning this whole thing is a return statement? No, I still can't do that. Man, I'm not getting the nodes. I have the nodes, but it's just not working with the map. I just think we have 2 line in now. Damn it! I wanted to just 1 line it. So let's just remove that little bracket, and I think we have extra something here. We have extra something. So we're missing 1 more bracket here. Okay. And then this doesn't work. Oh, so we had an extra bracket over there. Text, and then return elements. So if we explicitly return just the element, now we're getting it. Now we're actually getting the nodes. Let's text inner text, and the inner text actually changed. So now it seems like it's good. It's actually returning the node because we explicitly return the node. So yeah, this is good. We got the year title, so I believe that's there. But this is still not working. Cannot access append node before initialization. So let's see what the problem with that is. It's not being initialized. It's saying it's not being initialized. So what's not initialized? It's for each. The target we passed in here was movie detail div, which is this. And then here we're clearing the inner HTML, so make sure there's no nodes, nothing in there. Before initialization, what did I do wrong? Pen child, it is a pen child. So. I'm just not sure what's not initialized. Is it just this? But that's not the problem, because when we made this function, this worked. So when we call this function, we did the same thing. We passed in all the same arguments, and it worked. See, it works. And all the functions that we created, they're all pretty much the same thing. We do the create, and then we change the inner text to the properties and return the element, which is sort of like that. So the issue is between these 2 lines. Target append child, we have append child, and we're appending the tag. And we do have the tag, as we saw earlier. We do have the tags with the change values. Nodes for each. So the first thing we're passing in is the nodes. Tags with text, yeah. And then movie detail div, which is the target, which is that. So what are we missing? I'm not sure what we're missing. I don't think we're missing anything, to be honest. Is it because of this const? I think it's because we have a constant, but technically we're not returning anything. We're just passing it in. Because this append node doesn't return anything, right? It just appends it because it's for each, so there's no return. All it does is appends it to the target. So maybe, I don't think that's a problem, but maybe that might have been the problem. Okay, so that was the problem. So yeah, that was a really weird problem. It took a long time to figure out, but since I was putting constant, let's just rewind it. Since I was doing append nodes, oh, I see the error. Do you guys see the error now? I put the same name twice. I named my function and my variable the same thing. So let's just, as a test, let's just see what that does. I think this will work now. Okay, this will still work. Okay, guys, some silly error. I just named my variable and the function the same thing, so that was the only error. So yeah, that was hard to figure out, but you guys, we figured it out together, I guess. You guys saw me struggle. It was not. It was a very simple solution, but sometimes you just can't see it right away. without going through a step by step. So let's just remove this thing out. So that's one way to do it. As you guys saw, we could do one function and then which does like a couple different things. We pass in the properties. That's fine. Or we can create, create separate functions which does its own thing. So the first one, it just creates it. The second one, it just changes the inner text. The third one, all it does is append it. So it's 3 methods, as we saw here, 1, 2, 3. It does 3 methods, and we tried to do one-liners, but for some reason this one did not return the element when we changed it. So maybe there's a fix for that. If you guys find it, put it on the chat, or yeah, put it on the chat and let everybody know. I think that might be super helpful once we start working with once you start working with like larger projects and files. So we could have saved 3 lines of code here, and we could have done just a one-liner here, but we had to do 4 lines, which kind of messes up the order and doesn't look that nice now. But yeah, so we took care of that. I'm not sure if I'm gonna delete this or just keep it for reference. I think I'll just keep it for reference, just to leave it as like notes to show that it's. Yeah, I think I'll just leave it for now. But I'll comment this out. So I'll just say this is a one function. One function doing all 3 versus two 3 functions doing one thing. so the parity is that you could either have one function doing 3 things, or you can have 3 functions doing one thing. Generally, it's recommended you have 3 functions doing one thing, or every function just doing one thing, so that it's easier to debug and looks cleaner. You can reuse it anytime you want. So if I want to do something like this, well, if I were to create another element somewhere else down the line, I could just use the same function, or just like for here. We could have just done this. Well, in this case, it would be 2 things. This will be 2 function calls, or we can hard code the inner text. So actually, this is a bad function. These functions I created are actually bad, in my opinion, because it's not that reusable. Is it? Let's see. This one is fine. It takes in one argument tag, and it just creates it and returns it. That's fine. The second one is not that good because this is very specific to this function. So I think this function is not good. There's a better way to do this. Maybe split it into 2 functions. But the problem with this is that you need 3 arguments. So that's the problem with this. So, or maybe you could just not create this function, just make the function here. So there's so many ways to go about it, but it's generally best practice to create one function that does, it's a simple function, just does one thing. And so yeah, could we still do this? Yes, we could. We could still do this, but it's still a one-liner. I just wonder if we can. I wonder if we can just. This would have been for this. I think we do this a few times. Do we? We could have created this function where it just creates it and then changes the inner text. We could have done that, but we couldn't have reused it here because our properties changes. We need to specify the property of the object that we're changing with. So we couldn't really specify that. So sometimes it's not you can't really simplify your code and just create one function that does everything. Sometimes it depends on the other functions itself and functionality of your code. So we could not have done that. But okay, let's move on. Let's see what else could we have done, or what else could we do? So for each local function. So for like this, the data. This is fine because this is a function itself, so you don't have to actually create a function for this. So this one is fine. This function, what this does is it loads all the reviews associated with that movie. So just that function only runs whenever you change it. The movies it just checks if there's anything in that object for that movie. If there is, then we append it to the UL. So this adds review. So my add review is this. Whenever you type and then you hit submit, this function gets fired. So what it does is it gets the text, and then we get the value as well as the inner text. So I'm holding the reference to the inner text, as well as I'm holding a variable which holds the value of it. So then here I can just call the reference of text and length, the property of length, and then here I can change the value later on. I think I'm not sure why. Maybe I don't think I needed this. Oh no, I did. Since you guys can see that I'm using it 3 times. Or as console log doesn't count, but I'm using it twice. So if you're using it more than once, then just store it as a variable. So here we are using it once, twice, but both times we're doing. Okay, yeah, this is fine too. What are we doing? We change the value every time you hit this. This gets cleared, and then we create the stuff. We add it to it. Constant element title. That inner text. What is this? What the hell is this? Oh, we're grabbing the title of the movie, and then in that object we are putting for that movie. We're pushing in the thing we just created. So my object holds an array. It's an object with movies as keys, but the values of the keys of the movies actually are arrays, which holds the LIs, which are the reviews, each review. That's the way I structured my data for this. Okay, let's move up, up, up. So we've seen this already. We just made this, so I think we all understand this part. Is it cleaner? I think it is cleaner because we had like a lot of redundancies here. We had 9 lines, so we kind of reduced this to, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It is still 9, but it is outside. These functions are outside of this function, so it does look a little cleaner performance-wise. Whenever you're calling something else, it does take a little more time. It's very minuscule, but it's very minute. Minute. It's very negligible, but in a large file, every millisecond adds up to maybe not that much, but still. Select movie data. What does this do? If movie data titles document that focus and then return movie data. So the way my this thing works, it's I have my movie data, which holds the whole everything we fetched, and then I'm actually checking if what am I checking? Return movie data. Not focus. What am I checking? Movie data. So I'm passing movie data. So I believe this passes the title as in the current selected title. So select that value, and the movie data is the object itself, pretty much the global object. So I'm matching the title with the object, and then from there I'm grabbing the title value. Or what am I grabbing? I'm returning the whole object. So I'm returning all the details for that movie. So it selects the movie data for that specific movie that we're at. So actually, this is kind of inefficient. I'm holding all the data, which we only use like 3 properties of it. So I'm holding useless data or unused data. So performance-wise, this is actually this could be improved. And then make movie options. So what does this do? It just creates 10 options. And the way I did it was I created the element, I changed the value in text, which I mentioned earlier. This is redundant. I shouldn't have done this. I could have reduced my code in other places with changing the value and storing the title and year, everything here. And then we are appending it. Okay, so we append it to the query selector, as well as what is this? Reviews data. As well as the reviews data. So every time you so what happens is this function, it creates everything as well as the object that holds all the keys to the movies. So then get all movie titles. What does this do? It's just async. So it just sets my global movie data to whatever return response we get. Okay, that's fine. And then this is DOM content loaded. So this is the order it works, sort of. So first thing, you have to get all the movie titles. It's fetching. You gotta wait for that. And then secondly, it just makes the options. And then 2 more things. We just need an on change on this. Every time it changes, this should be changing. And then lastly, we have the submit button for the review. So from the code challenge, we saw that you could just, the 4 main things was just fetching the data, creating the object, creating the options list, putting an event listener on change, and then putting another event listener on submit or on click. So I still have on click here. And this is a form, so actually I should have turned this into a submit on the form, but that's one thing I should have done, or I could do, but I won't be. We're almost at 60 minutes. I did not realize that I was going to take this long just to figure some of the things out, but I hope you guys liked it, and learned something from the way I debug things, which just pretty much console log and just digging through it step by step. And then, yeah, you guys saw like 2 ways to do this. Either one big function or little function just doing one thing essentially. So yeah, that's all for today.